I'm going to tell you something that you've probably never had a teacher tell you before. You should be skipping more test questions. Do I sound crazy to you? Well, there's a reason my coworkers at Magoosh call me El Lobo Loco. Or they should. Please call me that. Let me explain what I mean. The GRE is unlike any test you've ever taken. In fact, it's an entirely different breed of test. Doing well on the GRE does not mean that you aced it. What it does mean is you used the 35 minutes that you had to do as best as you could on the 20 questions in front of you. And that means you are a skipping virtuoso. Here are 3 good reasons why you should be skipping more test questions. Reason number 1, time is precious. 35 minutes, 20 test questions. That's an average of 1.75 minutes per question, or 1 minute and 45 seconds in non-robot speak. That's not a lot of time. That's a really, really short amount of time per question. To do well on the GRE, you have to be miserly with your time. Be picky with how and where you spend it. It's precious, it's non-renewable. And that likely means that you're not going to be able to take every single test question in order. In fact, the vast majority of test takers just can't have time to work on every single question. It's a hard thing to accept, for myself included. Not unlike the fact that strangers really don't like it when I sing show tunes at the top of my lungs while grocery shopping. I'm being told by my producer that we don't have footage of that, to which I say I am actually very, very relieved. So the first reason you should be skipping test questions is because time is extremely precious on the GRE. And so that means you're going to have a game plan in place for how best to use it to your maximum advantage. Reason number 2, not all GRE questions are created equal. What do I mean by this? Well, think about GRE questions like cheeses. Some are harder than others. Okay, it's not a perfect analogy, but the point is, some GRE questions are just more time-consuming and require more energy than others. Some GRE questions, you open them and they're just super tough, and other ones are, hey, that's not so bad. They're softer cheeses, so to speak. Let me give you some examples of questions that when you see them, your first instinct should be to give them a hard pass and move on to softer cheeses. Example number 1, triple blank text completion problems. These questions are huge time robbers on the GRE. Unlike single blank questions, they actually require 3 times the amount of work to get them done, and they count for the same number of points. Oh, and if you get any one of those 3 blanks incorrect, you lose the entire point anyways. So these ones are best avoided on the first pass through a section. If you have time at the end, tackle them, but otherwise, look for softer cheeses first. Example number 2, probability questions. We've all seen them. They're horrific, they're confusing, they're highly prone to errors of both math and critical thinking, and they're relatively infrequent. They're like the friulano of hard cheeses. Friulano. Very, very good. Friulano is a type of cheese that I found through the process of Googling. And like probability, I think they're both pretty much in the rare and uncommon category. So they're probably best avoided on the first pass through a test. Or maybe they're delicious. Maybe I should order some. Yeah, I should order some. Example number 3, long passages. Long passages on the reading comprehension are the cause for much fear and trembling on the GRE, and rightfully so. They're like giant wheels of Friulano, if you will. They often require us to read them more than once to understand what's going on, and even then we have to dive back in and out of the passage, hunting for details, in order to get the questions correct about them. But there is good news, my friends. Between the 2 sections that you're graded on your GRE, you're only likely to see 1 long passage question. And that means you can skip it, you can pass on it. Roll that giant wheel of cheese right down the hill. If you get down there and you can attempt it, great. If not, no biggie. Hopefully along the way, you've been able to devour a number of other cheeses, your chevrets, your camemberts, your fetas, your brie. Wow, I'm really committing to this cheese analogy. Those are just some examples of questions that you might want to skip on your first pass through a section, but it really depends on the person. Ask yourself, what am I good at on both the math and the verbal? What questions do I enjoy working on, and which ones just kind of trip me up and make me lose confidence in myself? And so use your own knowledge about yourself to inform your own skipping strategy. This brings us to reason number 3, be kind to your brain. Sometimes when we're working really, really hard on something, our brain just kind of hits a stopping point. Maybe it's an unfamiliar word or a really complicated sentence, or there's a mathematical property that you just can't quite remember. When this happens, it's good to remember 2 things. 1, that time is really precious on the test, as we've already talked about. And 2, that our brains need regular breaks in order to work effectively. By skipping and flagging difficult questions and then coming back to them later, we give our brains a chance to kind of decompress and digest in the background. We can work on other things, and then once we've gone through the rest of the section, we can come back to those hard questions with a renewed appetite for them, so to speak. And by taking that break, we just give ourselves a chance to see the problem with fresh eyes. It's a lot like if you grew up in the Midwest, like I did. You know how important it is to take regular breaks when you're trying to devour an entire plate of cheese, which is practically a hobby where I'm from. All of the cheese analogies aside, one thing you can really do to help yourself is to set up skipping drills just to test these kind of skills. So set up a drill for, say, 10 questions, but only give yourself 5 minutes. And make the focus of that practice asking yourself, which questions do I want to take right now? Which ones are better left skipped and tackled if I have time for them? Doing those kinds of drills will condition your brain to getting into that skipping mode. And that's really going to see better results on test day, I promise you. What questions do you like to skip? Drop them in a comment below for everyone else to see. On behalf of El Lobo Loco, I wish you happy studying and bon appetit.